Hey guys, it's Bailey. Welcome back to the channel and thanks so much for tuning in. Today's video is going to be a review and demos of some new products from e.l.f. I was perusing their what's new section, got into some trouble, got the new Opposites Attract palette as well as some new brushes that I spotted and their mix and match adjusters. Different shades or different types of adjusters I guess I picked up and I'm going to talk about it here today. So let's go ahead and dive in. First I want to talk about the foundation adjusters. One of you guys actually pointed me in the direction of these because in a recent video I was talking about my Natasha Denona Foundation X and how I previously kind of ditched it because it was a little too deep for me, and so I found myself not wanting to risk, the look of a foundation mask, so it fell by the wayside and I forgot how much I loved it until this summer when I was finally of the right skin tone to wear it, right? But rather than toss this aside for all the months that I can't wear this foundation, one of you guys suggested checking out these adjusters. So basically there are two different kinds, one that adjusts the shades, whether you need to go lighter or deeper. I got the lightest. It's a white shade. I don't know if it's called white, but it's the lightest shade within this collection. And that I use to lighten the Natasha Denona foundation. Then they also have an undertone adjuster. And depending on the day, this can sometimes look, maybe it's an oxidation thing, but it can oxidize pink on me. So I got the yellow undertone adjuster to help pull it away from that pink and a little bit more closer to my natural neutral undertone. They come with these precision tips. Basically, it's the same packaging as their old school shimmering highlights, which I think they still offer, but just for reference, this is exactly like the size and shape of the opening that you'll get, which is really nice because it allows you to dispense the tiniest little bit of product. If your foundation is just a little off, you don't need a whole dollop of product, you don't need like a pump's worth of product. This will help you dispense just enough of this pigment to help adjust your foundation appropriately, which I really like. They're also super duper pigmented, so a little bit of these guys goes a long way, and the texture is right smack dab in the middle of like a thicker cream and a more watery cream, if that makes sense. Like I wouldn't say they're too thick, so they're not really gonna heavy up your foundation, and yet at the same time they're not too watery. So if you have something that is closer to a thicker cream slash almost satin finish foundation like this, these aren't going to affect the texture or the finish of the foundation, especially if you're just adding a little dab of product to it. Of course, the more you add, the more it's going to affect the texture and maybe even the finish of your foundation, especially if it's like a true full-on matte foundation versus a true light coverage glowy foundation. Those might be the two extremes that these don't apply to, but for the most part, I think these are gonna add a ton of versatility to pretty much any foundation you wanna mix, any liquid foundation you wanna mix these with. Now onto some new brushes I picked. Well, technically brushes and a weird sponge thing that I picked up. I really love their studio brush collection because for the price, they are so well made. The bristles are a nice quality, there's no shedding, there's consistency across the collection. It's a really good brush collection in my book, whether you're first starting out with brushes in your makeup or you're a brush pro and you're just looking for more good quality brushes to add to your collection. These are always a good go-to. So spotted these in the what's new section, and they are, let's start with these first because they are kind of similar in shape and purpose. One is the pointed eye pencil brush and the other is the tapered blending brush. Now, especially at a distance, I feel like these look identical. The main difference is that the tapered blending brush has a triangular ferrule, so it was pinched in a way such that it creates this triangular shape, and as a result, even though it looks like a fluffier blending brush, there are actually flattened sides here. And at first, I kind of didn't know how to use this in my makeup routine because I was like, what is this going to do that a normal blending brush or a precise blending brush isn't going to do? But as I got to use it more, I got to know the difference. So first off, the pointed eye pencil brush is, like you would expect, really great for detailed crease work, whereas the tapered blending brush is not only great for that detailed crease work because it's even more tapered at the end, if you can imagine, but because it has those flat sides, it's also pretty good at packing on pigment. So it's actually a way more versatile brush than this pointed eye pencil brush. You can see on my right eye today, I have taken one of the shades from the Opposites Attract palette. I've patted that in my outer corner as well as blended it up into the crease, versus on my left eye, I use the pointed eye pencil brush, and I just think this is that much fluffier that it drags the product a little bit more. The product looked like I was skipping a little bit more, and overall, I just like the performance of using the tapered blending brush as both a tool to pack on color and blend throughout the crease, I liked it more than I did what I would typically reach for that kind of thing. Do I think you need them both? No, probably not, but just food for thought if you're wondering about the differences between the two. Maybe consider picking up the tapered one instead of the other if you just want to try it out and see if that extra little bit of versatility actually works for you in your everyday routine. Then for the sake of comparison, I wanted to put these next to an existing e.l.f. brush I had that reminded me a lot of these. This is the crease brush, and you can see, I mean, especially from a distance, they are all very similar. The crease brush is noticeably larger, but basically it is most similar to the pointed eye pencil brush, and ever so slightly larger. I find it is truly better for a larger crease buff because of that, yet it's still pretty precise. Maybe it's because I have like a larger surface area in my eye, still prefer something even bigger than this to get a really nice thorough blend throughout my crease. And yet I do find it does that large scale blurring and blending a lot faster and easier than the pointed eye pencil brush does, as you might expect just from the size and the name. But overall, would recommend all of these. Now moving on to two brushes that I wouldn't really recommend, the first of which is the Sculpting concealer brush. This is an interesting like triangular shaped kabuki brush, and I've just come to decide I am not a brush person when it comes to concealer. I much prefer the heat than the warmth of my skin and my hands to help blend my concealer in my under eye area. I just find it looks and feels so much more natural there, and it's just a lot faster and easier to blend in. Whereas the brush, it kind of moves things around, it soaks up a lot of the product, and it just doesn't feel like it lays quite as well. So maybe, and really through no fault of the shape or the make of this brush, I'm just not a brush person when it comes to concealer. And then this last one is the Intense Highlight Sponge, which I did use to apply my intense highlight today. Basically, I don't like the idea of a sponge that I can't really thoroughly wash on the end of a brush handle, and I also don't feel the need to use a sponge to get a super intense highlight. I find that I can use something like this Luxie Beauty brush, which tends to be my go-to. Like I could get the same highlight application with this thing as well, no sponge needed, and it's easier to clean and maintain in the long term. So in short, no to these. And last up is the Opposites Attract eyeshadow palette. When I first saw they launched this on their Instagram, I was so intrigued by this color selection. I mean, I think we kind of all were, right? Because the premise is that half of this palette is entirely warm tone and like distinctly warm tones, and the other half is distinctly cool. There is no in-between neutral to kind of help them blend together. It is what it is. And as a result, I mean, first off, the shadows are great. I really like the quality. They're very, very pigmented across the board, smooth, easy to apply. Some of the better shadow formulas that e.l.f. makes are in this palette, which is good because for e.l.f., I mean, it's a $14 palette, so it's getting up there in terms of their price range. For me personally, there was kind of a mental hurdle to get over before this was intuitive to use for me. It's like by dividing it strictly by warm and cool, like the two could not mix and match. And that made it kind of harder to find more wearable looks across here, because the great thing about this palette is there are lots of beautiful bold shades to choose from. Like they really didn't waste a lot of space in here for the shades that everyone has. Yet it's still a complete palette to where if you wanted to take this traveling with you, you have those must-have shades, the crease shades, the highlight shades, etc. But they didn't waste a whole lot of space on those. They really got to the punchier peaches and deep smokes and purples and emeralds. Like I really do like it for that. However, because I had in my mind this like artificial barrier between the two, it just made it a little bit hard and weirder to do things with. I don't know how to explain it. Eventually I got over it. You can mix the two. Maybe it's just me. I was wearing a look from the warmer side a few videos back, so today I decided to do one using not all of the cooler shades, but a selection entirely from the cooler side of the palette, specifically using the shade Wise, which is, let me tell you, identical to the shade Corduroy in the Emily Noel palette. So depending on if you like that shade but weren't quite sure between the two palettes, just so you know, this one right here, it's what I'm wearing in my outer corner, amazing, and very, very similar to that one, and in my opinion, a must-have for any makeup collection. Anywho, I'm also wearing that with Clever across my lid, and then used Witty as my crease blending shade, and then I did actually go into Fresh so that I could blend that even further out up into my brow bone. But in general, I think this is a really great palette. You just, maybe, if you're like me, need to get over some weird mental hurdle you have about how you can mix these shades to create looks that are a little less limiting if you were otherwise to only use cools with cools and warms with warms. So that's it from me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video getting to see what's new from e.l.f., what I think about it. Would love to hear your thoughts on any of these things as well. And also, has that ever happened to you where like the layout of a palette like impacts the way you think about it and plan your looks using it? Am I weird? Is that just me? I don't know. Let me know down in the comments below. Besides that, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye, guys.